Hello everyone and welcome to Split Second. This week we have a different episode. It's the first round of the Wheel of Fortune tournament, held in Lisbon last week by our friends at the cEDH Portuguese League. We have Gonçalo playing Urza Polytyrant, Tiago Francisco on Yisan, Baal is on Kenrith Evolution based on Highest List, and Miguel Neves is on Curious Control, Thrasios and Vial Smasher. Baal won the dice roll and kept his first 7, with a Bloodstained Mire and a Watery Grave for lands, with a Lion's Eye Diamond, Mox Diamond and Noble Hierarch for ramp, and a Grand Abolisher to protect his main phase stuff, Cyclonic Rift if the table needs a reset. Miguel went second and also kept his first hand, with a Forest and a Snow-covered one, Deathrite Shaman for ramp and Sylvan Library to keep his hand full. Preordain and Gitaxian Probe can help in the early game to get the necessary pieces to grind the match, and Force of Negation for interaction. Gonçalo mulliganed once and found quite a strong hand, an island and a Misty Rainforest for lands, with a Mox Opal, Sol Ring and Mana Vault for ramp. After dumping his hand, he still has Mystic Remora to maybe refill or slow the table down, and Power Artifact just needs to find Basalt or Green Monolith to go off. Lastly, Tiago Francisco also mulliganed once and kept a 1-lander, with a snow-covered forest, but with plenty of ramp like Finhorn Elves, Birds of Paradise and a crop rotation to get a Gaia's Cradle. Script Ranger can help with the missing land drops, Based Within for interaction and Woodland Bellower is mostly to get the Scotch Recruiter or Endurance, outlets for infinite mana loops. Ready for this match? Baal starts his turn with a Bloodstained Mire that he cracks for his Scrubland. He then casts a Mox Diamond, discarding a Watery Grave, and casts a Grand Abolisher, which leaves some shields on the table. Miguel then starts his turn with a Gitaxian Probe, probing Baal's hand to see if Abolisher is that problematic. He draws and then plays a Forest, and casts a Deathrite Shaman before passing. Gonçalo plays a Misty Rainforest and cracks it for an island. He then proceeds to dump his hand with a Sol Ring into Mox Opal into Mana Vault and finishes with a Mystic Remora before passing with 3 cards in hand. Tiago plays a Snow-covered forest and casts his Birds of Paradise before passing. Baal draws and plays a Tropical Island. He then attacks his black deck and on its second main phase he ponders for a second and casts a Noble Hierarch to leave mana for his Decay before passing. Miguel plays a Snow-covered forest and activates Deathrite, exiling Watery Grave from Baal's graveyard to cast his Thrasios, not wanting to feed the fish with his Sylvan Library. He passes the turn and Gonçalo pays for the Remora. He plays a Snow-covered island and casts his commander, Urza, getting a Construct when it enters. He passes the turn and Gonçalo finds a land. He casts a Finhorn Elves and plays a Boseiju who shelters all, before passing. Baal keeps finding lands, an Ancient Tomb this time. He decides to go aggressive, casting Kenrith and activating it to give haste to all creatures. He then attacks Gonçalo with the Exalted King and passes. Miguel unfortunately doesn't find a land, so he's forced to pass, stuck in green mana. Gonçalo finally lets the fish go. He plays an Urza Saga to keep up with flavor, and then decides to go YOLO by hardcasting Tidespout Tyrant. Tiago passes priority and Baal as well, but Miguel responds by exiling Baal's fetch with Deathrite to cast a Red Elemental Blast on the Tyrant, effectively saving the table. Gonçalo passes and on his end step Tiago fires a crop rotation, sacrificing his Boseiju and finds a Gaia's Cradle to the battlefield. He still flashes in a Script Ranger before getting to his turn. Still not finding any lands, he casts his commander, Yisan. He activates Script Ranger to untap his Birds of Paradise, returning his Forest to hand, and then plays it. He casts his Sylvan Library, which he was keeping away from the Remora, and passes the turn. Baal draws and goes straight into combat, attacking Tiago as he has Library in play. In his second main phase he also casts his Sylvan Library, and then casts Lion's Eye Diamond before passing the turn. Miguel finally finds a land, a Flooded Strand. He also wants to join in with the Librarians as he brings his own Sylvan Library to play before finishing his turn. Gonçalo takes 1 ping from the vault, draws, and his Urza Sagas gets his second chapter ability. He casts a Personal Tutor and finds a Fabricate. While the table is fearing Isokron shenanigans, he's really aiming for a Green Monolith to pair up with his Power Artifact. He passes the turn and Tiago flashes in Yeva, Nature's Herald, in his end step. Tiago draws 1 extra from the library as he can shuffle whatever he doesn't want with Yisan, whenever he wants to. He casts a Phyrexian Revoker and Baal responds to it by drawing a card with Kenrith. Revoker then resolves and after some pondering, Tiago names Kenrith. He then activates Script Ranger, untapping Birds of Paradise and returning his Forest to hand so he can play it again. In his end step, Miguel cracks his Flooded Strand for a Volcanic Island, and then he fires a Mystical Tutor, since he won't be able to do it in Baal's end step. He gets an Abrupt Decay to get rid of Grand Abolisher. Baal then gets to his turn and pays 8 life to the Sylvan Library, drawing 2 extra cards. He plays a Wooded Foothills and cracks it for a Volcanic Island. Noticing Miguel is relying heavily on his Deathrite Shaman for non-green mana, Urza is quite set up and Yisan as well, he aggressively fires an overloaded Cyclonic Rift. Grand Abolisher ensures it resolves, and then he attacks Gonçalo once again with Kenrith, since he'll be the first player to easily recoup with his fast mana rocks. He passes and Miguel draws his Abrupt Decay, but what Baal wasn't counting was his Preordain. He scries both to the bottom and thus find a Misty Rainforest, which he cracks right away to get an Underground Sea. He casts his Deathrite Shaman and passes, holding on to his Abrupt Decay. Gonçalo draws his Fabricate and his Urza Saga triggers. He taps it for mana in response and then ponders between getting fast mana or an expedition map to find Tabernacle. But Cradle can simply deny it and Baal will eventually untap with only 2 creatures, so he chooses to progress his game plan and tutors for a mana creep to the battlefield. He then plays a Scalding Tarn and casts his Mox Opal, followed by his Sol Ring and then his Mana Vault. He then recasts his Urza, getting a Construct when it enters, and proceeds to cast his Fabricate, tutoring for a Grim Monolith. And now the table does suspect he plans on going for a power artifact. They don't dream, however, he has it in hand all along. He passes, however, as Miguel still holds his Abrupt Decay. Tiago gets to his turn and fails to find a land yet again. He casts a Birds of Paradise and follows it with a Finhorn Elves, and in his end step Miguel does fire his Abrupt Decay on Grand Abolisher, and then Tiago discards to hand size, actually discarding Sylvan Library, as he has Regal Force at the ready. Baal keeps on drawing 3 with the library, paying 8 more life, and plays a Tundra. He casts a Carpet of Flowers and follows it with a Chrome Mox, pitching a Phantasmal Image. He goes to combat and attacks Gonçalo, as he is closing to the 21 commander damage. On his second main phase, he adds double blue with Carpet and draws a card with Kenrith before passing. Miguel is still not finding lands and slowly trying to recoup, as he casts Sylvan Library and passes. On his end step, Gonçalo cracks his Scalding Tarn for an island. He gets to his turn and wins the Creep Troll. He casts his Grim Monolith and follows it with a Power Artifact, attempting to enchant it. Tiago passes Priority and Baal hardcasts Force of Will, to which Gonçalo responds with a Narset's Reversal. Baal passes and Miguel responds with a Force of Negation on the Power Artifact. As a last resort, Gonçalo activates Urza and spins the wheel. He reveals the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale, so his second attempt at winning unfortunately falls short. He plays the Tabernacle and passes. Tiago pays for his creature triggers, he casts Yisan and passes. Baal pays for the Tabernacle triggers as well, draws 2 extra from the library and casts Gitaxian Probe right away towards Miguel. He sees a Trick Bind that actually stops him from going for Thoracle, which he has in hand. He draws, plays a Taiga and sends Exalted Kenrith at Gonçalo, realizing now he has more islands than Miguel. Gonçalo blocks and Baal activates Kenrith to put a +1/+1 counter on him. He then gives Trample and Haste to all creatures and Gonçalo is the first casualty. On his second main phase, he adds double white with Carpet and gains 5 life with Kenrith. He then casts Emil as a blocker and passes. On his end step, Miguel activates Deathrite Shaman, exiling Gitaxian Probe and dealing 2 damage to each opponent, and he and Tiago start doing math on how to kill Baal in a turn cycle. Miguel starts his turn, drawing 2 extra from the library, paying 8 life. He then casts a Gilded Drake and Baal responds to it with a Force of Will, pitching a Flusterstorm. Miguel does respond with his own Flusterstorm, and Baal doesn't flinch with this Pact of Negation on the Drake. The double forest on Miguel's side are preventing him from doing much more, so he just passes. Tiago gets to his turn and casts Crib Ranger. He untaps his Birds of Paradise, returning his forest to hand and plays it again, still not finding any other land. He then recasts his Phyrexian Revoker and Baal responds by cracking his LED for triple white, discarding his 2 cards in hand and activating Kenrith to gain 5 life. Tiago names Kenrith and then passes, and the round timer is reaching the final minutes. Baal pays for his pact, draws an Enlightened Tutor, which he ponders on casting before resolving his library trigger, but decides not to. He keeps only 1 drawn card from the library and attacks Tiago with the Exalted Kenrith. He doesn't block, and on Baal's second main phase, he gets 2 white with Carpet and activates Emil, blinking Kenrith and paying 1 white to put a +1/+1 counter on it when it enters, finishing his turn, and hoping to survive the last rounds. In his end step, Miguel activates Deathrite Shaman, exiling Thassa's Oracle and gaining 2 life. Miguel pays 8 life again with his library, drawing 2 extra. He casts a Mana Crypt and casts Underworld Breach. Time has been called and this will be the last turn of the match. Can he make it? Underworld Breach resolves and he follows it with an Imperial Seal for an LED. He then escapes Gitaxian Probe to draw the card, looking at Baal's hand. He casts the Lion's Eye Diamond and Baal warns Tiago that he should respond soon, and tells him Miguel has a Trick Bind that can mess with Tiago's plans on fetching interaction with Yisan. This way, Tiago responds to it with a Beast Within on Underworld Breach, to force Miguel's interaction, hoping to make him spend his only blue mana available through Deathrite Shaman, which he does, exiling a fetch from Baal's graveyard and escapes Flusterstorm. Tiago then responds by activating Yisan and tutors for a Heap Doll to the battlefield. LED then resolves and he cracks it for triple blue. He then escapes LED from the graveyard, and in response, Tiago sacrifices Hip Doll to exile Imperial Seal, which leaves Miguel with no options to go off, lacking cards in the graveyard to use to escape Trickbind and still being able to escape Imperial Seal, so he scoops it up and the first round is a draw. GG. Thank you for joining us for today's match, everyone. This was the first match of this tournament, and in the next 2 weeks we will have the following rounds. We hope you enjoyed this kind of video, where you can see different people playing in a more controlled and timed environment, where stress and adrenaline can play a major role in players' decisions. We'd like to start the credits by thanking our current patrons, and especially Izanagi, Stefan, TJ Rap, Mike Purr, Ajimo, Uncrustable, Drunken Housecat, V, RJ, Hitachill, Pina, Ricardo, Dragonstake, and Katarina, our new stack breaker. If you want to support us, you can do so by liking this video, subscribing, or by becoming a patron yourself. If you want to go through other Commander adventures, click one of the videos on the right. If you want to talk with us about our games or other EDH related matters, join us on Discord. Join us again next week for a new set of Commanders and more decisive plays. See you all then.